I didn't mean for it to start like this. I think that's what everyone says, but it's true. I wasn't looking for drama or heartbreak or to turn my life into something strangers could pick apart on the internet. I was just trying to be a good person, a good girlfriend, a functioning adult in a city that never slows down long enough to let you think. When I met Alex, I was 25 and working as a project coordinator at a tech firm downtown. It was one of those jobs that sounds impressive until you realize it's just color-coded spreadsheets and late-night emails. Alex worked in marketing at the same company, tall, confident, with that easy charisma that makes everyone laugh a little louder around him. We started as coworkers who shared too many deadlines and too much caffeine, and somewhere along the line it turned into dinners that lasted too long and goodnight texts that lingered just a little too much. We moved in together after a year. I told myself it was practical, 2 rents becoming 1, a shorter commute, but really, I think I just wanted to feel settled. Everyone around me seemed to be getting married, buying condos, posting engagement photos with captions about finding their person. I wanted that feeling of certainty, of belonging to something. The first couple of years were good. Not perfect, but good in the way that makes you think you're building something real. We learned each other's habits, our arguments were short and recoverable, and I believed that loving someone meant learning to tolerate the small cracks before they split open. Then last spring happened. It started with little things, messages he'd hide when I walked into the room. A sudden obsession with the gym after years of claiming exercise was capitalist propaganda. I told myself I was imagining it. I'd been through jealousy before, and I hated what it turned me into. So I stayed quiet. I wanted to be the cool girlfriend who trusted her partner completely. But trust isn't a personality trait. It's a balance that tips the second one person stops trying. The night I found out, I wasn't even looking for evidence. I was trying to order takeout from his phone because mine had died. The message popped up while I was scrolling. Can't stop thinking about last night. My thumb froze over the screen. I wish I could say I confronted him right away, that I handled it with dignity and strength, but the truth is I just stared at that message until the words blurred. When he came home, I asked him about it quietly. He denied it at first, the way people do when they think they can still rewrite reality. "You're overreacting," he said. "She's just a friend." But friends don't say last night in that tone. It took 3 days for him to admit it. 3 days of silence, avoidance, and me replaying every conversation we'd had for months. He finally told me in our kitchen, standing by the sink, eyes on the floor. It had been going on for 6 weeks with a woman from his gym. I remember thinking how absurd it was that betrayal could sound so ordinary when spoken out loud. After that, everything unraveled in slow motion. I moved into the spare bedroom. We stopped cooking dinner together. The apartment filled with that kind of heavy quiet that feels like a living thing. He kept apologizing in circles, crying, promising therapy, swearing he didn't love her. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to so badly, because believing meant I didn't have to start over. But every time I looked at him, all I could see was the version of myself he'd lied to. People talk about infidelity like it's a single act, a line you cross once. It's not. It's the erosion that follows, the slow, constant doubt that eats away at everything solid. You start questioning memories, rewriting history. Was he already lying then? Did he mean it when he said he loved me? Did I ever really know him? I stayed for another month because leaving felt impossible. I told myself I needed time to figure things out, but the truth was simpler. I was afraid. Afraid of loneliness, of starting over, of facing a life I didn't plan for. You don't realize how much of your identity you've wrapped around someone until they pull away and you're left trying to recognize yourself without their reflection. The night I finally left, it wasn't dramatic. I didn't pack my things in a rage or slam the door. I just woke up at 2 a.m., sat in the dark for an hour, and realized that nothing he could say would make me trust him again. I booked a rideshare, took a suitcase, and went to my friend Maya's apartment across town. She didn't ask questions. She just made tea, handed me a blanket, and said, "You'll figure it out." The next few weeks blurred together. I went to work, smiled when people asked if I was okay, pretended to be normal. But every time my phone buzzed, I felt that jolt of fear, half hoping it was him, half praying it was. He texted every few days, "I miss you. I'll change. I'll do anything." The kind of things you say when you're more afraid of consequences than regret. Maya told me not to respond. I didn't, not for a while. But one night, after too many glasses of wine and too much nostalgia, I did. That's how it started again. The second act, the part where you mistake familiarity for safety. I told myself it was just closure. That's how it always starts, isn't it? The lie you tell yourself because you're not ready to admit you're still addicted to the person who hurt you. I told him I just wanted to talk, to get some answers, to make sense of the chaos. But deep down, I wanted to see if there was still something left, something salvageable. We met at the little bar around the corner from our old apartment, the one with the dim lights and the bad cocktails that we used to laugh about. The moment I saw him, something in me cracked. He looked the same, maybe a little thinner, maybe more tired, but still him. That familiar face that my brain still recognized as home. He said he was sorry again, in that same voice that had once talked me down from panic attacks and made me believe in good things. And for a second, I believed him. That's the worst part about heartbreak. It doesn't erase love. It just layers pain over it until you can't tell the difference. We talked for hours. He told me it meant nothing, that it was a stupid mistake, that he'd been drinking too much and feeling insecure, that he didn't even like her that much. I listened. I cried a little. And somewhere between my second and third drink, I reached out and touched his hand. My body reacted before my brain could stop it. Muscle memory, that's what it was. The kind of reflex that doesn't care about betrayal or logic. We went back to his apartment. I wish I could say I stopped myself, but I didn't. I let myself fall back into that space because it felt easier than pretending I didn't want to. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that it was just closure. That maybe it was okay to need something familiar, even if it was broken. The next morning, I woke up in our old bed with his arm around me and this deep, hollow ache in my chest. I wanted to feel comforted, but instead, I felt small. It wasn't love. It was nostalgia dressed up like forgiveness. I left before he woke up. He texted later, asking if we could start over. I didn't answer. For the next few weeks, we circled each other like ghosts. The texts came less often, and I stopped replying altogether. I focused on work, on therapy, on remembering who I was before him. It's harder than people think, rebuilding yourself when so much of your identity has been tangled up with someone else. You start questioning what parts of you were real and what parts were molded to fit their shape. Therapy helped. At first, I didn't even know what to say. My therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Lillian, told me to start with what I missed. I said I missed the way he used to look at me, the way I felt safe in that look. She nodded and asked, "Do you think you miss him, or do you miss the version of yourself you could be when he loved you?" That question ruined me for a week, because she was right. I didn't miss him. I missed being someone's person. I missed being chosen. There's this strange emptiness that comes after betrayal. Everyone warns you about the heartbreak, but no one tells you about the identity crisis. The realization that the life you built isn't yours anymore, that every memory has been redefined. You start to see ghosts of your old self everywhere, in the way you make your coffee, in the playlist you can't listen to anymore, in the restaurants you avoid because they remind you of laughter that isn't real now. But slowly, painfully, things started to shift. I got a promotion at work. I started running again. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with because my life had revolved around him. I even started painting, something I hadn't done since college. I'd sit on the floor of Maya's tiny balcony at sunset, headphones in, paint-stained fingers holding a glass of cheap wine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt okay. Not happy, not healed, but okay. And then, of course, that's when he came back. It was a random Tuesday night. I was making pasta, music playing, windows open to the city noise when my phone buzzed. "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. It had been almost 6 months. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to throw the phone out the window. But another part, the quieter, lonelier part, just wanted to know why now. So I replied. We met at the same bar again. This time I was different, or maybe just tired. He said he'd been going to therapy too. He said he'd realized what he'd lost. He said he wanted to try again, properly this time. I listened, but I didn't feel that pull anymore. I didn't trust him, but I also didn't hate him. That surprised me. When he asked if I'd consider giving him another chance, I said I didn't know. Because I didn't. I wanted to believe in second chances, but I also knew how easily people romanticize redemption. We didn't get back together that night. We just talked until the bar closed, then went our separate ways. He texted a few more times after that, and I answered politely but distantly. Eventually, the messages stopped. I think we both knew it was over, truly this time. The funny thing is, I thought the end would feel dramatic, like a door slamming. Instead, it was quiet, like turning off a light in an empty room. I thought that would be the end of my story, but endings have a way of unfolding long after you think they've arrived. The months after that were quiet in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Not the kind of silence that suffocates, but the kind that lets you hear yourself think again. I started noticing things I'd forgotten about, the way the city smells after rain, the little rush of relief that comes from walking home alone and realizing you don't owe anyone an explanation for where you've been. I used to hate eating dinner by myself. Now it became something sacred. I'd cook, light a candle, and sit at the small table by the window, watching people walk by with their stories playing out behind glass. There was something peaceful about it, like being invisible, but in a good way. Work got busier. My boss started trusting me with bigger projects, and for the first time, I wasn't worried about someone at home feeling neglected because of it. I realized how much I had been shrinking to make myself small enough to fit inside a relationship that didn't have room for me. I'd been scared to take up space, scared that ambition would make me less lovable. It took losing him to understand that love that demands your silence isn't love at all. It's ownership. Still, healing wasn't linear. Some nights I'd wake up at 2 a.m. with my chest tight, missing the idea of him more than the man himself. Sometimes I'd scroll through old photos, zooming in on the background details instead of our faces, trying to remember who I was in those moments. But slowly, even those pangs started to fade. It was around that time that I met Julian. I wasn't looking for anything, not really. A friend convinced me to go to this small gallery opening in Soho. I almost bylaid. I had a deadline and a headache and a general disinterest in small talk, but she begged, and I owed her, so I went. He was standing near a painting of a woman sitting in a bathtub, her face turned away. The colors were washed out, melancholic, the kind of thing you stare at too long because it feels like it's trying to tell you something you already know. He caught me looking at it and said, "It's sad, isn't it? But kind of beautiful, too." I don't know what it was about that. Maybe the timing, maybe the softness in his voice, but something in me opened. We talked about the painting, then about art in general, then about everything else. He was thoughtful, funny in a quiet way, the kind of person who listens more than he talks. I found myself telling him things I hadn't said out loud in years, about my breakup, my mistakes, the way I was still trying to figure out who I was without someone else defining it. He didn't flinch, he didn't try to fix it, he just listened. That alone felt revolutionary. We started seeing each other casually at first, coffee after work, walks through the park, long talks on his rooftop where the city felt both infinite and small. I told myself to take it slow, to not get attached, but connection has a way of slipping through your defenses when you're not looking. Before I realized it, I was falling for him, not in the dizzy, all-consuming way I had before, but in this slow, steady warmth that felt safer. Julian wasn't perfect. He was guarded too, carrying his own quiet sadness from a past relationship that ended badly. But we were honest with each other about it. There were no promises we couldn't keep, no pretending to be healed when we were. It was messy in a real, human way, and maybe that's what made it work. One night, a few months in, we were lying on his couch watching some old movie when he said, "You don't talk about him much." I froze for a second. Then I said, "Because I don't want him to live in every story I tell." He nodded. "That makes sense. But you know, it's okay if he still shows up sometimes. Healing doesn't mean erasing. It means learning how to live with the ghost without letting it drive." I didn't answer right away. But later, when I got home, I thought about that line, learning how to live with the ghost without letting it drive. It stayed with me for weeks. Things with Julian grew naturally. No fireworks, no dramatic declarations, just quiet consistency. He'd text good morning. He'd remember the small things. He'd show up. And after what I'd been through, showing up felt like the rarest kind of love. But love, even healthy love, can still scare you when you've been broken before. Some nights, I'd catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to pull away, for the message he didn't send, for the silence that used to mean something was wrong. My brain had learned to equate comfort with danger. It took time to unlearn that. One evening, I told him about it, the fear, the mistrust, the way I sometimes sabotaged good things because I was afraid of being fooled again. He just took my hand and said, "Then let's not rush. We'll move at whatever pace feels safe. I'm not going anywhere." And he didn't. It wasn't a fairy tale. We had arguments, insecurities, bad days. But there was something profoundly healing about being loved without being consumed. I learned that peace can be just as powerful as passion, that quiet mornings and shared laughter can rebuild what chaos once destroyed. Sometimes I still think about my ex, not in a longing way, but in a grateful one. Because without that heartbreak, I never would have found this version of myself, the one who no longer confuses love with permission, who no longer begs to be chosen. Healing didn't come as a dramatic moment. It came in small, ordinary ways, in the steady rhythm of a new life that didn't need to be spectacular to be meaningful. I guess that's what I wish someone had told me back then. Sometimes, the real happy ending isn't a new person. It's finally realizing that your story didn't end when they left, it just changed direction. It's been 3 years since that night in the gallery. Julian and I still live in the same apartment, the one with the leaky window that never quite closes all the way. The city feels different now, not smaller, not safer, just more mine. I still walk past the places that used to hurt, and sometimes they still do, but it's a dull ache now, like an old bruise that reminds you where you've been. Sometimes I think about the girl I used to be, the one who begged for answers, who stayed up at night replaying every word, wondering what she could have done differently. I don't hate her anymore. I used to for being naive, for loving too hard, for letting someone break her and still calling it love. But I see her differently now. She wasn't weak. She was just trying to build something real with what she knew then. And maybe that's all any of us are ever doing. People like to talk about closure as if it's a door you can shut when you're ready. But it's not like that. It's quieter, slower. It's the way you stop checking their profile. The way you hear their name and your stomach doesn't twist. The way you finally stop narrating your life as if they're still watching. Closure is just the moment you realize you've stopped needing them to see who you've become. I used to think healing meant forgetting, but now I think it means integration. Every heartbreak, every mistake, every lonely night, it's all stitched into me. I'm not trying to erase the past anymore. I'm trying to understand it, to let it inform who I am without defining me. Julian and I talk about marriage sometimes. The idea doesn't scare me the way it used to. Maybe because this time, I know that love isn't about losing yourself to someone else. It's about being fully yourself and still being chosen. There's no pedestal here, no pretending to be perfect. Just two people showing up, even on the hard days. Last week, I ran into my ex for the first time in years. It was in line at a coffee shop of all places. We made small talk, work, how's your family, that kind of thing. He looked older, maybe a little sadder, but still familiar. For a second, I saw flashes of us, the laughter, the tears, the promises, but it felt distant, like watching someone else's memories. When he said, "You look happy," I just smiled and said, "I am," and I meant it. After he left, I sat down with my coffee and realized something I hadn't before. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about releasing the version of yourself who kept waiting for an apology. It's choosing peace over punishment. That night, I went home and stood by the window, the city lights reflecting off the glass, and I thought about how strange it is, the way love breaks you open, rearranges you, and somehow still makes you more whole. I thought about how, for years, I was scared that the worst thing that ever happened to me would define me. But now I know that what defines you is what broke you. It's what you chose to build after. If I could talk to that younger version of me, the one crying on the kitchen floor, wondering if she'd ever feel okay again, I'd tell her this: you will. Not right away and not the way you think. You'll have nights where you still ache, where you still reach for someone who isn't there. But one day, you'll wake up and the air will feel lighter. You'll make your coffee, open your curtains, and it won't hurt anymore. You'll look around and realize that nothing was wasted. Every heartbreak taught you something. Every ending made space for something new. And maybe that's the real miracle of it all, that after everything, after all the pain and loss and uncertainty, you can still wake up and love again. Not in the same way, not with the same innocence, but with a deeper knowing, a softer strength. I used to think that love was supposed to save me, but now I know that it's not about being rescued, it's about being seen. Truly seen for all that you are and all that you've survived. And in that quiet knowing, I think I finally found what I'd been searching for all along: myself.